Okay, sorry. So Tuesday morning negotiations opened with text on business and industry, with the U.S. weakening language on collaboration and the EU, Switzerland, Republic of Korea, and Mexico strengthening it. The EU, Switzerland, ROK, and Australia also moved to retain text on developing goals and benchmarks for progress in supply chains, while the US and Japan moved to delete this. And a reference to the Global Compact principles was supported by Norway, Australia, Switzerland, the EU, and Mexico. The G77 made multiple comments on dusty paragraphs, it called them, that were unnecessarily convoluted with reference to multiple themes. And the G77 noted that the core theme of paragraph NCST 41 was mobilizing the private sector in financing, and stated its view that shifting the green economy burden onto the private sector was very unrealistic, adding that if governments do agree to implement a green economy, governments should be the ones taking ultimate responsibility for that. The US, Canada, G77, and Japan agreed that streamlining was necessary through all those new paragraphs. And the G77 again motioned to move the green economy to Section 5 on MOI. And other delegates just proposed minor changes and suggested other potential ways to streamline. So Tuesday afternoon, negotiations began with Section 5, and the US moved to erase introductory text on implementation gaps and renewing previous commitments as it felt they were not forward-looking, while the EU and the G77 moved to strengthen these commitments towards implementation. The G77 insisted on retaining reference to the Rio principles, and G77 also moved to delete text on goals, targets, and gender-sensitive indicators, as it was unclear what these referred to, because the paragraphs were so convoluted. While Switzerland, the ROK, Norway, and Australia, and Iceland moved to retain these. And then in the paragraph calling for a green economy roadmap, the G77, New Zealand, US, Canada, Japan, Russian Federation all moved for complete deletion of that theme. The G77 restated its stance that a roadmap would give the green economy unfair priority over other equally valuable tools, and Canada stated that a one-size-fits-all green economy model just could never exist. And so only Switzerland and the ROK moved to retain that. And in a paragraph on implementation through knowledge-sharing platforms, Switzerland, the US, and Canada moved for deletion, while the G77 and Kazakhstan moved to retain. In the section on poverty, the EU chose to reserve until all paragraphs were available, stating that it didn't support the inclusion of a separate section on poverty at all, due to the overarching nature of the issue throughout the document. And then finally, in the evening session on food security and agriculture, which was very slow-moving, the EU and the G77 commented on the fact that delegates were continuing to just propose changes to safeguard their positions and on national agendas on a paragraph that was meant to be a global agreement. And then the G77 moved to delete most of the subsequent paragraphs on linkages between food security, nutrition, and sustainable development, with support from multiple other delegates stating that they were again dusty and didn't add any real value to the text. And Iceland moved to include fisheries throughout the text, while the EU suggested that it remained in the section on oceans. And then finally, NCST 64 Quad on enhancing agricultural production was especially contentious and took up quite a while, with the EU proposing specific goals and deadlines, and the G77 moving to shift the focus from the lack of production by developing countries to unsustainable production patterns of developed countries. And that's where we left off.
Thank you very much. So it seems that the discussions in agriculture are still separating one from each other. They are the differences between the two groups are even bigger than they were at the beginning.
But several of them did agree that they wanted to adhere to the language that came from the Rome world. Okay, several of them did agree, though, that they wanted to agree to the language that came from the Rome Declaration and the World Food Security Council, so they did agree to that. But there was some hassling over it. The Holy See came in and said that he wanted to strengthen the language on the right to healthy and nutritious food. The G77, several members have been talking about, they said that they want to appeal to the UNGA because several of them were talking about that they didn't know what the global social protection programs were about. So I don't know if it was sarcasm or not, but there was someone that said that he would be quite glad to take the time to explain to them in detail exactly what it meant. So they reserved the right to go for that. The United States, when it came to I think it was pre-64, they wanted to take out the word commitments. They had an issue with the word commitments. I was so shocked. And so there was some haggling on there, and they want to change the language on that. They're really trying to kind of back out of it seems like they're trying to back out of the word commitments. And I'm trying to think what else. And Korea wanted to talk about individual countries having their individual rights. So that was the main thing. They were writing it as they went. And each time they wrote it, a paragraph, and they had to take 10 to 15 minutes to discuss it, and then they would come back. So that's what kind of slowed everything down. Watching paint dry is a lot more.
The way the chair is dealing with these negotiations is not, this particular time is not really helping, because he is presenting the text, the new text, for the first time during negotiations, and countries don't have the opportunity to have prepared reactions to that. So that's also why the negotiations are moving so slowly. But again, here we have this issue about commitments, no commitments, objectives, targets, indicators. We don't want anything like that. We want to go to what has been agreed already, and this is going to be a major problem for us, for other countries to have something better in here.
At the beginning of the 3 o'clock session, the EU began and opened up with a rather lengthy intervention that stated the goals and targets and what they wanted to achieve with the 3 dimensions. By the way, some of them are referring to dimensions. Every once in a while, pillars still occurs. And they talked about the wanting to achieve poverty eradication, sustainable development, and contributing to the SDGs afterwards. So it was a rather lengthy intervention by the EU, and Switzerland had a rather strong response to it. I was kind of surprised. And the G77 reacted strongly to the specifying that the green economy is a tool, and by attaching a roadmap, you're changing the nature of the tool. So that's kind of how it got into the definition of what a tool in the toolbox is. I thought that was very interesting. But most people tended to feel that it's not one size fits all, so they, as she said, kept it out.
Thank you. Any other comment? No? Then we can go, maybe.
I'm Richard Ballhorn from the International Council of Metals and Mining and Metals. I just can't see, I was a negotiator last time around in Johannesburg. I can't see how they're going to get finished the way they're going. Yeah. This is too slow. This process of chairs coming in with text and spending an hour on one fraction of a paragraph, it can't work. Just look at the time available, and it's not clear that we're going to have any more time before Rio. Certainly the 77 may want it, but the other countries are not agreeable to it at this point. So I don't know how they're going to get this done, and I think we should be thinking about that, quite frankly.
Yeah, well, that's what we were saying, that this dynamic that the chair has decided to present new text, it's not helping, but I'm not seeing that there is a strong reaction from the countries either. They are somehow accepted, so I guess there is something else going on in a closed door or something like that.
I don't think it is. That's the problem. Nothing else is happening. No.
Because otherwise when we say no, this is not the way of working, I'm sorry, we need to have the, especially the G77, we need to have the text in advance, otherwise we cannot prepare our position. In any case, I think it's very likely that we will have the extra addition week, even 2 weeks before the prep come in June, but we'll see.
No, I don't think so.
Shall we go to the reporting back?